Hello, good evening everyone. Sorry that I'm sitting here in the gloom, but at least it's quite nice lighting. It's really nice to be here tonight. I feel like lockdown is about to finish. I don't know why, the daffodils are out, the sun shone, it's all good. And tonight I am here to talk to Lisa Conway Hughes, who is a financial advisor. She's a really good financial advisor. She's got like the highest qualification a financial advisor can get. And she also has a particular interest in helping people sort their finances post-divorce. And she's written a brilliant book called Money Lessons, and she's just incredibly approachable and she's really straight talking, and I just really liked her. My friend Viv introduced us, and she's been really helpful to me when I was writing the book, because I know that finances can be one of the worst things about a split, especially if it's a split that you didn't instigate, or maybe even if it is a split that you didn't instigate, it can be really anxiety making. So, oh, hello to lovely people waving. I've probably missed Lisa asking to join, so I should just sit here again just in case she does. And I think I try to work out why finances just make us feel so grim, and I think it's part of that out of control feeling that you can't you sort of had this certainty, you thought your future was going in a certain way, and now it isn't, and it can make you feel really lonely. And I think also finances are one of the things that, like, really, it's a stark thing that shows you that someone has really checked out when they stop paying, or they don't want to pay as much. And you were kind of think, right, that's Lisa saying she's requested, but now I can't see the request. Lisa, you might have to leave me and reapply. Could you do that? I'm sure that's not the technical way to do it, but I don't know how I'm going to... Oh, Lucinda's asked to be in that. That's not you, is it? This is why I can never be a TV presenter. Ah, here she is. View request. Hopefully she will appear in a minute, and she's really gorgeous and blonde. Here you are.
We made it.
We made it. Yesterday I did one and I had to update my app. I mean, that was just... I'm going to move slightly back a bit. So, oh, look, I'm glad to see you're in the dark as well.
Yeah, I always look like I'm in the dark, but I've got every light going on. But...
I know. I don't know why that is, but never mind. At least it's quite flattering, I think.
Yeah, the dark.
At least I sort of look like I've got a vague suntan in this light, so I might just stay here all the time. So I've just given you a sort of glowing review and said, and talked a bit about, your amazing credentials, and how, how to me you were the kind of really empathetic face of, I came to see you quite early on, and I was just absolutely petrified about money, and just it felt really painful and hurtful. And is that something that you see quite a lot?
Yeah, there's always tears, and I think especially when you're in that limbo of it just happening and you don't know what direction you want to be in. I think when people have got an idea of maybe what the future holds, where they want to go, sorting the money out can be the empowering bit, where when you're in that limbo and you don't know what you want, you don't know what even your likely options are, then I think it's always distressing, especially if you've never done it before as well.
Yeah, and I think even I mean, for me, obviously I was always sort of in charge of my own finances, and then, like, really ridiculously, I don't know what, I mean, I still have my own single account and stuff, but I kind of handed all the sort of house finance and all that stuff over, and then so I think I sort of disempowered myself a lot. So when it all happened, I thought, oh God, how it's ridiculous. How do I pay the electricity bill? How do I do, and I think you sort of go into those blue and pink roles, don't you, a bit? And do you see that a lot of women have kind of handed over the joint finances?
Yeah. Well, definitely going into those set roles. So someone might do the household bills, someone might do the banking, someone might do the longer term planning and the bigger idea sort of financial planning, but very rarely does someone feel they can do all of those jobs. So yeah, it's really common, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be the woman, but there is usually a dominant person financially in the relationship, and one person is usually really happy to just let that person get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I think a lot of people who've messaged me today, that's the kind of general feeling, a feel of sort of fear. And then I guess also there's so much kind of, if you're not the person that made that decision, there's so much hurt involved, because in a way, it's a sort of very real signifier that someone's checking out. You know, you were a team, you did have these kind of shared visions, you did have a stable future, and then all of that's gone. So it's sort of loaded with so much more, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it can often signify, starting the financial planning bit can really signify the end of what was before as well, which can be really emotional. And also I do just think when I mean, it would never be my intention to make someone upset, but actually some of the questions that we have to ask to really get under your skin and understand what will make you happy and where we're heading and what's going to be the perfect plan for you can maybe questions that you've just never thought about, or you don't initially know the answers to, which can be upsetting.
And I think any brain, when it's trying to grapple with something really big, it sort of is almost, I interviewed this really amazing hypnotherapist, and she said it's almost the uncertainty is worse than the worst reality almost. And to me that was a bit similar with the finances, in that, you know, I literally became that woman who was like this, you know, the bills were coming through the door and I was just sort of like not even opening them, and I didn't want to engage in any talk with my ex about money. I found all that so painful. So, you know, coming to see you was the first step on trying to sort it out. And I remember being a bit reticent because I remember my friend Viv was like, oh, you know, a financial advisor. And I thought, well, I haven't got any money. And
well,
actually,
I do think we put people off. We do put people, our industry puts people off, because I think people think you've got to be a gazillionaire to be able to afford us. But I think it's worthwhile just shopping around and having a chat, because most of us will offer you a free session. So it's worthwhile.
And how do you go about making sure, because I think another thing about the financial industry that always worried me was this idea that someone was going to kind of, I don't know, I guess rip you off in that sense. Like, how do you make sure somebody is sort of decent?
Well, the honest answer is you never know until you can be sure and the advice has gone through and it's perfect. But you want to find someone who's independent, well qualified, because if they're invested in their career, they're likely to hopefully not rip you off. But then you can look at there's something called vouch for, and if you look at for the advisor's name on a vouch for, you'll find honest feedback from existing clients about what they're like. And I think really maybe just start by, where will you actually find a financial advisor? Maybe speak to your friends and family to see who has got a long-standing relationship with someone that they think is good. And then I think that you've got to understand the motivation for giving advice, because if someone only makes money when you switch your pension, or when you usually let's say when you switch your pension or you move your investments, the likelihood is they're going to recommend for you to switch or move when it might not be in your best interest. So you might want to find an advisor that's willing to charge you by the hour, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And did you mention to me that, sorry, you said independent, so that should be on their literature, should it, if they're an independent person? Yes, okay.
And you can find it on the FCA register, I presume, as well. But being independent, there's sort of three sections. You can be an advisor who just sells one product, and one company's product. So that would be someone who, say, worked for a bank.
Okay. So if you went to Barclays or something,
Yeah, so if you went to Barclays, you wouldn't be surprised to get Barclays investments.
Yeah.
And then if you could be a tied advisor, which means you can choose from a small selection of investments to go with. And then independent means that we'll pick whatever is right for you, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That really makes sense. And so could I ask, in the sense of, like, if somebody's like right in the eye of the storm, and a lot of people have emailed me, and they, you know, their partners have started to pay a much less into the, and this is generally a sort of family thing going on. They've started to pay much less or nothing at all. And in that scenario, would you know, is it about kind of trying to get a mortgage break, or just trying to get through those early months? I think we sort of chatted about that, and you sort of said it's about a sort of bit of a war meeting for those kind of first few months.
Yeah, I think you've got to do whatever you can do to make ends meet in the short term, and then you've got to plan, well, what is my new life going to cost me, and how am I going to achieve that? If things are really tight, then things are going to need to be cut back.
Yeah.
Maybe there's friends and family that are willing to help you. Maybe if they're reasonably well off, they might be able to help. But essentially, I think you've got to brace the difficult bit, which is making a spreadsheet or writing down a piece of paper what's going out, what's coming in, and what the potential shortfall is.
And for me, sort of, I guess when it happened to me, in a way, I needed a kind of couple of months to, because I think you're so in shock, you're so, you're not really thinking straight. So for me, absolutely, it's like the first couple of months of, I mean, I wasn't as badly affected as some people are, but I think, it's just kind of trying to get your brain straight. If you can buy yourself a couple of months or even 6 months, if you can, you're gonna be so much stronger when you actually come to it. But I think, it's interesting to, talking to you and talking to my lawyer, that a lot of women, sort of a bit further down the line, really, really want to keep the house, don't they? They always say that. And I said that because I think you're looking at trying to keep your kids' security and you're trying to keep one certainty. But actually, you said to me, you have to really think about these things and whether whether that is the right thing for you.
Yeah, and just because you want to keep it for the next year, 2, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, doesn't mean you want to keep it forever. So that sort of flexibility maybe can be written into the divorce, that it gets sold at a certain date and then you split certain profits, or if there are profits later down the line. So I think you've got to just consider every single option and not go for you're going to be torn between your heart and your head, aren't you? So a financial advisor will be really good at laying down all the options, all the head options, and then you'll have to just filter that out with whatever your boundaries are.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think, also in terms of that kind of first kind of crisis point, it's quite often, I mean, for me, it was really useful to get a friend who was financially savvy to just sit there and kind of and go through that. And I think that's, the divorced lady, Sarah Davison, she was always saying, you need kind of like 4 or 5 people. You need someone who's going to, be at the end of the telephone. Someone's going to drink rosé with you. Someone that's going to go for a run with you. And then, we've all got a friend who's, reads the newspaper section, the money section. But also, I mean, at that stage, it's literally about saying, okay, well, can you borrow something from here? Can you put that on a credit card? Can you ring the mortgage company and get a mortgage, a mortgage break, all those kind of things. Get someone to sit with you basically and do that.
And just rearrange your bills, because most people pay far too much for all like the little things that we need every month, like your gas, electricity, all of those things you can cut back. And I think just gradually, as we get older and we earn more, or the family income is more, that you naturally spend more money.
You're so right. I was thinking that today, there's stuff that you just sort of automatically kind of, you just sort of, you start buying the sort of £10 bottle of wine or whatever, don't you? You kind of, you go up the sort of levels, and actually you don't necessarily need to on everything. And I think you're absolutely right. And the things like utility bills, it's a doozy. But I think if you're sort of cross with your ex, you're thinking, well, he should be ringing the utility company. Actually, it's really empowering, isn't it, to sort it out yourself? That is, if you get to a stage where you're brave enough, then actually you feel like you've really ticked a box.
I just saw a lady ask about long term. Shall I answer the question, whether she should use ISAs for long term planning? I think you probably want a mixture of both, because ISAs are great in that they're easy accessible. So if you wanted to retire earlier, or you wanted the money before you were going to retire, an ISA would allow you instant access. But a pension, you could, by not doing a pension, you could miss out on tax relief, very, very valuable tax relief by not doing the pension. So I'd probably have a think about my short, medium and long-term pot. Short term being cash, medium term potentially being the ISA, and long-term pot being the pension.
And quite often, Lisa, women don't have the pension and men do have the pension. And so, I guess I'm 46. Other people have been writing to me today saying that, they're in their early 50s. Is there a stage when it is too late, or is it never too late, or what's the...
No, it can be too late if you want to save a fortune, but it's never too late to just be heading in the right direction. And also, don't forget, if you're worried that all the pension is in one person's name and not the other, pensions are shareable in divorce if that's how you want to arrange things. So it doesn't mean that you should be left with nothing. And just a little stat that the average woman has a fifth of the pension pot of men. So we're really behind. There's a gender pay gap, gender investment gap, gender retirement gap. So yeah, we do have to pull our socks up and get going with these things, whether we're divorcing or not.
Yeah, and I do think that quite often that comes from, you know, the woman buys the sofas and buys the you know, the towels and that kind of thing, don't you know? So you sort of divide it up that way. And yeah, that is I'll just see what other somebody asked me about, you may not know this actually, but about lawyer fees. So if for instance if all the money is coming, you know, if the money is, you know, the guy is the main breadwinner and he's left, but somebody feels that they're not going to get a fair deal by going to mediation, but so obviously they can't afford a lawyer. Do you know what happens in that scenario? Does the earning person need to pay for the lawyer, or?
Yeah, so I was involved in a divorce last year where this was an issue, and the husband just literally cut everything off, and so the lady went she didn't have anything to spend, and so so I don't know the terminology, but some sort of emergency order happened, and the husband was forced to pay some money to the wife into her current account so that she can get by and make ends meet, but also to pay money onto account to the solicitor as well. So
that's interesting. If you go to a lawyer, and again, like you were saying with the hour free, you know, most lawyers will offer an hour free, won't they?
Yeah, or even half an hour at least.
Yeah, and you explain your situation, then actually that, you know, they can, you know, a lawyer will be able to advise you on that, because I do think the mediation route is obviously a very good one for saving money if it's amicable and if you feel equally empowered and able to kind of state your case. But if you're feeling very beaten or you're feeling scared, I mean beaten mentally, but you might, I mean hopefully not physically, but you know, then it isn't so good, because you might agree to stuff that you later regret.
Yeah, you've got to don't agree to anything in the heat of the moment, and I think, like we said when we did this chat this time last week on my channel, was you use the counsellor for counselling, the financial advice for financial advice, and the lawyer for legal advice, and don't mix them, because otherwise you're going to be paying the wrong person's time for the wrong thing. And
absolutely.
And we also promised to sort of put together a few bits where if people were really struggling financially. And shall I just reel off a few tips that I
think that would be really good.
found.
So just to recap, this is for people who have been cut off or are in sort of dire straits really, and just don't have enough to get by. So thank you, Lisa, that's really kind.
Yeah. So I started by getting all this information from Citizens Advice. So there's so much out there on Citizens Advice, and the cost of actually divorcing is £550 in court fees. So if you don't have that, you can apply to see if you can get government help, and you would need less than £3,000 in savings to be able to get that, or on a low income, and they class a low income as £1,085 gross per month.
Okay.
So you could get those court fees paid. And I always assumed that legal aid was a thing of the past in the family courts, but it's not.
Okay.
Not everybody can get it, but some people can. So the checklist for being able to get legal aid is, if you're using it to pay for mediation, you're at risk of becoming homeless. That's not just that you don't have a home, you don't have any money, but if your partner is going to, or your spouse is going to be kicking you out of the home, and therefore you would be homeless. You've experienced domestic abuse in the last 5 years, and .gov.uk is apparently the place where you can find a list of all the solicitors in your area that may offer legal aid work. And then if you can't get legal aid, I found this really interesting. There really is quite a lot out there. So the number one is there's something called a law centre. Okay. And this is where you can get either free or very low cost legal advice. And literally you just put into Google law centres network and your area, and then it will show you. Barristers also do pro bono work as well as solicitors, and you can find The pro bono work for solicitors on the Law Society. And for barristers, there's something called the Bar Pro Bono Unit. And again, just Google that, Bar Pro Bono
Lisa,
Unit.
just explain what pro bono is. That means they do it for...
It's that word we love, free.
Yeah. Free. So they do it for free, but then they, you know, once you win, once you get your money, they'll take something from that, right?
Not usually. No, pro bono can just literally mean for free. Some can do it on a no-win, no fee basis, but pro bono literally no charge. They're being kind.
They just do it from the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
Oh, and everyone's so mean about lawyers.
I know.
There's some lovely ones out there.
And it says you can go direct to a barrister. So we're talking about the Bar Pro Bono Unit.
Yeah.
You must apply 3 weeks before your case. You can't leave it too close. So give it time. And there's something called the Public Access Scheme as well, which may help. You can represent yourself, and this is called a litigant in person, and you're really recommended not to do that. Speak to citizens' advice if that's what you feel you're going to do. I know Heather Mills McCartney represented herself, didn't she?
But I do think I went to citizens' advice, and I have to say I do think it is, you know, it's an amazing sort of centre, isn't it? It kind of, you know, there's really kind people who give up their time, and I think, you know, they can really steer you in the right direction, especially if you're really sort of floating around, you just don't know what to do. No,
I think I was overwhelmed by the resources that were available on Citizens Advice when I looked it up. And then I didn't know until today, till I started looking through this, but there's a charity called Gingerbread. And
I've heard of Gingerbread, yeah.
It looks amazing. Like the resources that they have on their website look amazing, but it's essentially a charity that can offer counselling for kids, counselling for single parents. It's there to support single parents.
Yeah.
And on that website, they have a link to something called, I've forgotten, Turn to Us. I think it's called Turn to Us. Anyway, on their website is a grants section, and lots of trusts will happily give money to people who are struggling to pay everyday bills. Maybe you need some like school uniform, especially everyone going back to school in the next week or so. But also for one-off expenses as much as everyday expenses. And you can look on that Gingerbread website and put in the details of the money you're looking for, and it'll show you which charities you can apply for as well. So there really was so much help out there.
Brilliant. That is so good. And quite often, you know, if you're not in the state to, that's so kind. I might, if it's okay with you, share that on the website.
Yeah, of course.
And you also mentioned to me on another chat once that Christians Against Poverty, was it? Yeah, who also kind of will give sort of you know, donations and emergency money, and you don't have to be a Christian.
No, you don't have to be a Christian. But they have, so again, Christians Against Poverty have so many brilliant resources on their website as well. Just things like if you're in debt, budgeting, debt planning, helping you get out of that debt. It really is a great charity.
And so if we sort of come out of the crisis zone a bit and into the sort of stage where you're kind of, you're a year in, you're a year and a half in, you're kind of feeling more, you know, I came to see you and you did this amazing thing with your computer where, you know, you showed me. What was interesting to me is I think, you know, we can be very sort of set in the way, you know, okay, we pay off the mortgage, you know, this is what you have to do. You have to pay off the mortgage, you have to pay this into the pension, but you, what I liked about you was you sort of thought about it holistically. And so I guess, in a way, it's very freeing coming to see someone like you, isn't it?
Yeah, so the thing that I did for you technically was called a lifetime cash flow planner. So the computer makes it look pretty, but behind it is just me inputting every year of your life, and I killed you off at 100, I think.
Yeah.
Every year of your life, what's it actually going to cost? And if you're in that frame of mind, or you're able to get in that frame of mind, when we're planning someone's finances post-divorce, it's got to be your dream come true life, ideally, has got to be the starting point. So we plug that all in, press go, and blue means you can afford it, red means you can't. And most of the time at the beginning, there's quite a lot of red section where you don't have enough money to do absolutely everything you've ever wanted to do. So the software then can help you work out what those compromises need to be. So a really nice example is I had a lady who, again, was really adamant about the family home, but she wanted to retire. And I laid it very clearly on the table for her. Either she could keep the family home and retire at 65, or she could downsize to half the value of her home and retire at 55 and do the travelling that she'd always promised herself. And I think when faced with that sort of do I go left, do I go right decision, it was much easier to make than, oh, I don't know what's possible. And in the end, she did end up taking the go travelling.
Yeah.
Can't do it now, but she will be going as soon as she's allowed. And that was almost for her the difference between 10 years of working extra to pay a mortgage down for a house that no longer was making her happy.
And didn't have any kids in by that stage, probably. Yeah. It's really interesting. And so then I'm also really interested in your ladies' finance club. So have you set that up with someone else? That's about sort of empowering women, is it?
Yeah, I set the ladies' finance club up with my friend Molly, and it was all about empowering women to learn the language of money, really, because there's so much jargon in our industry, and I'm sure it's there to make us feel that we always need a job. But when you actually peel it back, it's really simple. Like I just said to that lady earlier, you need short, medium and long-term money. And you need a bit of a plan. You need a rough idea of where you're going and where you want to be. And then just like I did with you, say, well, if you want to achieve this plan, you've got to put away X per year. And for most people, financial planning doesn't need to be much more complicated than that.
It's a little bit tax planning. Your eyes kind of, you know, certain words make, you know, they're frightening, or they make your eyes glaze over, or they just, you know, it's a bit like for me, you know, when the computer pings up and says something, you know, like, you know, I just immediately makes me, I don't understand that. But if you sort of take 2 minutes to actually understand, somebody's just said, who is this lady speaking? They've obviously just come. It's Lisa Conway Hughes, who's an amazing financial advisor and a supporter of women going through divorce, who's very kindly giving us her time.
Thank you.
Right, we've got some more. Yeah, exactly. Keep strong and you will get through it. I'm just trying to think. We've probably got a last question. Oh, this was from somebody who is obviously wanting to split with her partner, but is scared about it because she just doesn't, you know, the finances seem so impossible. Is there a way, she's saying, of kind of working out if you can afford it, you know, before you go through? Is that about spreadsheeting it, or just, you know?
Yeah, I think if I was facing that decision, I would first of all make a budget planner of what life will cost. And on the Ladies Finance Club, you can download a budget planner template, which will just talk about sort of what will your rent cost, what will your bills cost, what will life cost if you've got kids, holidays, Christmas, birthdays, all of those things, to give you an idea of what you're going to need. And then, I mean, it's really, really sad, but I had a lady who contacted me, maybe it was 2018, probably 2018, and she wants to leave her husband because he sounds a horrid man, and she couldn't afford to, and she didn't have any money in her name, and she was really worried about the kids and what would happen to them. And so sadly she stayed with him for the last 2 years, but on a positive note, in those 2 years she's managed to save the money she needs to put a down payment as a rental, and have 3 to 6 months worth of cash, and then leave. And I know that means I mean, she's in a lucky position that she can save that kind of money. But it did take her 2 years to do it. But yeah, I think it's probably happening this weekend.
Oh God!
Finally,
I mean, money can be very freeing, or it can be very trapping, can't it? And I think, you know, we kind of, and so much of it is about being fearful of it, and that's why you're such a good inspiration for it. And I think, you know, I was just looking at Ladies Finance Club thinking, right, I need to sign up to this, because absolutely, I feel like if I could get that side totally sorted, I feel so empowered. Oh look, we're getting such lovely messages. That's brilliant.
Can I give you a quick tip if people are not feeling very money empowered? So this is for anyone, whether you're going through divorce or not. If you think back to what life was like when you were seven or 8, that's the age at which your natural money mindset was built.
Okay.
So if you are sort of come from a scarcity point of view, like it's all going to be terrible, money's never going to land on my plate. You think back to when you were 7, maybe money in the home was tight, and yeah, not ideal. Or
Yeah.
maybe if money makes you just want to run away, then from that conversation, maybe there were lots of rows about money when you were that age. But it's important to go back to just thinking about that age and how can you unpick that natural money mindset, because it's really possible to teach yourself a really good money mindset.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And actually, so much of what I wrote about in my book was about sort of unpicking those lessons you learned really early. So, and it makes total sense that financially you would do that as well, and sort of just kind of keep it at a distance. Or I mean, my main worry was that, you know, somebody's going to say to me, okay, you can never buy coffee ever again. No more frothy coffees. We're getting such lovely messages, and obviously there's so much more that we could probably talk about. I think we might have to do a series, and hopefully once the evenings get later, we won't be in the gloom. Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Rosie.
It's been so useful.
And if anyone has got questions that they do desperately want answering, if they just send me a message through Miss Lolly Money, I do try and answer everything. So do feel free to send them.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think we'll have to think of some more sessions with some good topics.
Anytime.
Thank you, and it's lovely to see you. Have a lovely evening.
See you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.